I've made 0 new friends in London in 5 years. Mm-hmm. My friends are my colleagues and my friends that I've had for 10 years. That is it. I don't make new friends. And this is something that I have echoed to me a lot when I meet men out and about, when I do talks and stuff and they come up to me after. I've had men whisper to me, how do I make friends where I'm lonely? And when they do it, they come really, really close so that the person behind them in the queue can't hear them say it.
I've had exactly the same experience.
And they whisper it about how do I make friends or I'm feeling lonely or something like that. And I've heard in your work, the work that was in your book, I think on page 45, you say that there is a male friendship recession. What did you mean when you said that?
We're seeing a decline in friendships generally, but it's much more acute for men. So in the US, 15% of men under the age of 30 say they don't have a single close friend. That's up from 3% in 1990. And so it's almost 1 in 7 men. You're seeing declining number of men saying how much time they spend with friends, shrinking social networks, everything you just described, which is like the process of making and sustaining friends is just something that men are really struggling with right now, much more so than women. And I think there's a couple of things going on here. One is we're revealing the extent to which a lot of that work was actually outsourced to women before, right? So if you're in a couple, how often are the social arrangements made by the women?
He's talking about dudes and relationships.
That the relationship maintenance, and the men free ride on the women, right?
Every weekend plan that's outside of my comfort zone, pretty much most of them come from my partner.
All right, she's organized something.
She's an organizer. She wants to go try this thing.
Bro.
Right, and you're
Let's go do vegan sushi roll.
I just want to play Far Cry 5.
I just want to lie on my back and watch Manchester United.
All right, fine. Exactly. I chose the wrong thing. I don't. So I think and women have been better at it, and men haven't had to do as much of it. So in some ways, I think we're being exposed a bit more in the sense that women aren't doing as much of that work for us anymore. They're saying, look, it's not my job to create your friendship network for you. So we're having to do it. And we're not very good at it. And we're certainly not very good at it yet. And I've had the same experience. I mean, I wrote a bit about loneliness, and I spoke at an event not that long afterwards. And I had a couple of young men, exactly the same as you, just come close and just say, I'm incredibly lonely.
Yeah, I mean, most guys have to make friends. Most guys have to make friends conditionally. It's like you have a friend from your school, you have a friend from work, or you have a friend from you just grew up in the same block, and you have a friend conditionally. But it's not to say that you don't want to make friends. Guys just have a challenge finding people that have the same values and morals with them to be part of their friend group. So we're going to talk about how to create that inner circle. It's really important how to build your team and tribe of brotherhoods that builds you up. It's not enough to just have guys that are around you. You want to have guys that are pulling you up as well. You're motivating them. They're motivating you. You all hold each other to a similar standard. And you rise together. That's essentially, it's not just having guys, random dudes. It's guys that are on the up and up and on the come up together.
And actually, for me, I was talking to someone about this the other day. There's something about loneliness that just breaks my heart in a way that other forms of suffering don't. And I don't know why, but if I hear about someone that's really lonely, my mum was talking about this guy who she ran into him, and he was going to this supermarket, and he was in front of her, in the queue, and she's like, "No, I'll go after you." He's like, No, you go first. And he says, "I'm on my own." And actually, the hours after dinner, especially in the summer, they're the hardest. So I always come down here to the supermarket and I buy a couple of things and then come back and have a chat, and it fills my time. And my mum, because she's a massive, she's like a social worker to the world. She ends up chatting to him and getting his phone number. But actually, that just pierced my heart. And so when you hear about these men, young, old, women, who are lonely, I think it's huge. And so and back to our earlier bit of the conversation too, is those institutions that maybe used to kind of connect you to other people, right? Where do you make friends? And you just said at work, right? And so I think our colleagues in some ways become our friends. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but it's different to the friends you've made at church or through your sports or through, do you know what I mean? Or wherever. And
I mean, the beautiful thing is now you can choose your friends based on common morals and values, not because you guys are just in the same room together for long periods of time because you're trying to work a job. You can choose who you want. Look at that hair position. Got to look that hand in hair position.
And so the other thing I'll say about this is, have you heard of the men's sheds movement?
I don't know what a men's sheds is, but I've heard of male groups and stuff emerging.
Yes, there's a lot of male groups emerging. There's one which is the Australian government just funded this in Australia. It's called the men's sheds, and they're places where men go and fix stuff. Like you'll bring a lawnmower or do stuff, right? And it's one of the things that I've really learned from this, and I wish I'd known more about it before. It's like, have you heard of this thing about men communicating more easily shoulder to shoulder than face to face? Have you come across this?
Yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah.
It's really interesting. So when my wife would sometimes, when her boys came home from school, she'd sit down directly opposite them, like across the breakfast bar type thing, right? And she'd sit directly opposite and give them protein. And then she'd be like, "How's your day?"
Yeah.
Proteins are good.
Right? She'd be like, "Yeah, right." And then later on, we'd be driving somewhere or watching soccer or playing a video game, like shoulder to shoulder, and they'd be like, "Yeah, this weird thing happened today," with her or with me, right? So eventually I said, "You've got to stop staring them in the face. That's not how men open up, right?" And so the men's sheds movement is actually, I think, based on a profound insight, which is that men have to be doing something in order to be being with their friend.
Yeah, man, because guys, we trust other dudes that we're with as we're doing something along with them. We're like, this guy is somebody I want in the trenches. This guy is similar to me. He thinks like me. He moves like me. I can trust him to lead. I can trust him to fall in line. I can trust him to hold rank. So because of that, we're like, this dude is cool by the way he works. All right. That's like the ultimate truth. The ultimate honest signal is how a guy moves and does the work. So we learn better shoulder to shoulder about each other by observing if a guy can keep his word. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any coffee shop and count how many people are sitting there staring at each other for hours on end. Mostly women. Not saying, right. And then go to fishing, road trips. It's the only explanation for golf. Do you play golf?
No.
Thank God. But like when a guy is saying, "Do you think I should use the 5-iron?"
Yeah.
I don't play golf either, right? But what he's really saying is, "I love you."
Yeah.
Or "I'm lonely," or "I need help." And so there is something to be said for like men, and even people have studied actually how men stand in relation to each other at like a party or something. When I've told you this, you won't be able to stop looking, is that men actually are always at a bit of an angle, right? We just don't stand face to face. It spikes our threat, cortisol or whatever. So we always stand a little bit of an angle. But also like doing something together requires us to be more shoulder to shoulder, which is why some psychotherapists now, they do walking, talking therapy. They've realized that with men especially, like sitting them down and staring at them is less effective quite often than going for a walk.
You said that you think...
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about it is like, I don't know if you're ever around your dude friends, your guys, you know, I'm like this too, right? Maybe you feel the same. We're like, hey man, what are we doing? What's the plan? What's the action here? How can we execute? Like when I have these conversations with guys, I just feel way closer to them than if I was like, hey, so how are you feeling today, bro? It's like, yo, what are we doing? How can we handle it? How are we going to crush it? Let's dominate. Let's team up. Let's kill it. That seems more of a bonding experience to me than when we follow through with it than just like talking about emotions.
One of the biggest issues facing men today is the issue of suicide. And you talked about some of the stats at the top of this conversation that relate to men. The most startling of all, as being someone that lives most of the time in the UK, is that it's now the biggest killer of men under the age of 45. Have you been exposed to those stories, especially as you published this book, but in your own personal life, have you been exposed to those stories of the impact of suicide directly?
Yeah. People rarely talk about...
Let's skip this
woman for book. Why should I not take my own life?
About that woman who's...
If you're a parent and was this you? Was this your fault? Are you the reason your son is dead? Might reflect on us in some way, perhaps.
Look, so at the end of the day, you got to make a decision, right? Like we all have to make a decision. Are we going to cope? Are we happy with our life? Are we happy just continuing with how things are? The mediocre, the basic, just getting through, not satisfied with our circle of friends that we have around us, just kind of having them because they're there, knowing this doesn't progress our life, doesn't bring us anywhere forward. We're like, hey, these guys don't even want to hear my dreams and passions. And if I did it, they would either reject me or they'd laugh at me. So I'm not going to say what I feel. Are these my ride or die crew? And you can either just cope and say it's not that bad and life is fine and you'll just get through it and it's good enough. Or you can come to a realization that it's not. And if you're one of those guys who just says life is good enough, then you shouldn't even be watching this channel. You know, don't even be one of the thousands of people that watch this channel. This just isn't for you. If you want to cope, if you're in coping world and that's like happy, good for you. unsubscribe, don't follow me, don't watch. But if you want to be somebody who is intelligent, believes that there's more out there, you've unplugged from the social matrix, and you want to be a better person, you want to enhance your life, then yeah, absolutely think about how could you create that tribe of people. Every man needs a tribe. You have your friends you're gonna have buddies with, as like drinks with, as beers, or those kind of guys. But every man needs a tribe that he can go and rise up to the occasion with. A tribe that he's like, yeah, we are a hand-selected team. We are a group of Avengers. We come together and we do things. So the guy that handles the money and brings the money to the situation, you don't have to be him. You could be him. Congratulations if you are. The guy that handles the logistics and planning, the guy that brings the girls and the other cool people, and the guy that organizes it, puts it together, and comes up with the idea. That's your crew. You go out and you have great events. You have great parties. You travel the world. You become a man in his prime. You find the ability to work remotely. You find the ability to have freedom and be on your own schedule, and you develop the resources financially to do that together. And that is an amazing thing. And you be able to create more than you could together with that compound effort. We talk about the law of compound effort. You can do more together than you could when you're alone trying to do all this, feeling overwhelmed and not having friends. So tribe is so important, super important. If you're into that, you can check out Social Circle Hacking. There's a link in the bio and in the comments for it. Tap into that. I'm not going to sell it to you. If you're ready for it, it'll sell itself, and it's a no-brainer. Money back guarantee. If you're not completely satisfied, you don't get the result, get your money back. All right, that's it for this reaction. The rest of it's kind of boring. I don't want to watch more of the video. You want to see more reactions, click one of the top corners. You want to see more about Social Circle Hacking and how to get the cheat codes and really advance your social life, your tribe, your team. Click the other corner. And that's it for now. Let's keep going. It's not complete. This is just identifying the problem, but we got to lock in and do something about it. I trust you. Let's keep going.